I'm John Stephenson. Are you one of the millions suffering as a result of the present credit crunch? Have you or your business been subjected to unreasonable bank charges, or have loans been suddenly and unaccountably called in? Worse still, has your bank sought a repossession order on your home? If any of these things apply to you, this message and the website I'm going to give you will definitely be of interest. The truth is that the people who are now giving us this gloomy picture of our future prospects are the very people who caused the problem in the first place, and caused millions of people abject misery. Have you ever wondered how we got into the present mess, and why this time last year everything was seemingly going so well, but a year later things are spiraling downwards and we are being told we're heading for a recession? Make no mistake about it. The economic downturn we are now facing was brought on entirely by the irresponsible action of the banks. They might want to try and shift the focus onto oil and food prices, but it's nothing to do with that, and I'll come back to these items in part 2. Ever since I witnessed at first hand the deceit and dishonesty of which a major international British bank was capable, I have become increasingly concerned by the uncontrolled power the banks exercise. Their incompetent actions can affect the lives of millions of people, and I think it's about time something was done about it. What is really worrying is that they are never held accountable for their actions. If we affect someone else, we are called to account. But when the banks make a serious mistake that affects the global economy and the lives of millions, unlike the rest of us, they're never held accountable. In fact, quite the reverse. They receive unlimited access to our money to cover up their mistakes. We pick up the bill, and they continue making enormous profits at our expense. The subprime market, which caused the present credit squeeze, is a perfect example of the scale of the disaster the banking world can have on the global economy and the life of millions when it behaves recklessly with our money. Subprime is a term the average person doesn't understand, and that's convenient for the banks. But precisely what happened? It began in the United States with property prices soaring. Banks loaned billions of dollars, almost 500 billion to be precise, to long-term unemployed people to purchase their homes when there wasn't a cat-in-hell's chance of them ever being repaid. Not only did this demonstrate utter recklessness, but it also showed a breathtaking level of incompetence. It didn't just finish there. Other banks in Europe scrambled to buy the debt mountain at premium prices, which compounded it further. Incredibly, UK banks then jumped on the bandwagon and began lending at multiples of earnings previously unheard of. Mortgages were being offered at 15 times salary and 110% of the property values. The ingredients were all there for a recipe of disaster. The same banks that encouraged you to borrow from them a few months ago are now applying to the courts for up to 3,000 home repossessions every week. Yes, the same banks are causing thousands of families to lose a roof over their heads every single week. Fortunately, the courts are not having it, and they only approve 1/3 of these. Now, with the banks seemingly so powerful, is there anything you can do about it? Yes, there is. I mentioned I experienced firsthand the deceit and dishonesty of which some of our major banks are capable. As someone who has run companies in the UK, France, Germany and Portugal, and done business around the world, I witnessed firsthand the way in which a major British bank ruined a successful company at the expense of its customers and shareholders, and eventually it cost the bank itself millions. Even when their actions were reported to the very top, instead of dealing with the problem, they tried to cover it up. I was so incensed by what I saw that I decided to make it the subject of a book, which I entitled Broken Promises, Betrayals and Barefaced Lies, which has just been released. It also prompted me to look at other failings of the banking system and the people who run it. What can you do? There's a lot you can do. Banks have their weak spot too. They are very protective of their brand name and never wish to court publicity, particularly bad publicity. And that is their vulnerability. There is a crucial fact about our personal or business finances that the banks use to their advantage. They know all our dealings are confidential and clients rarely disclose their private financial problems. This enables them to be confident that their actions are unlikely to ever become public. Would you know if your neighbor was having the same problems as you? This is why those companies or individuals who have decided on court action often find they settle out of court. Those injustices which have reached the national press are also usually dealt with quickly. As long as the individual is isolated and acts independently, it adds to the bank's advantage, and they will not hesitate to use their financial muscle and army of lawyers to issue threats. However, they cannot stifle free expression, and collectively their actions and behavior can be exposed. So the extent of their bullying tactics and the havoc they wreak can be revealed, and others can learn from it. I have established a website and associated blog to enable you to have your say, and it can be accessed from bankbetrayals.com. That's www.bankbetrayals.com. This is a forum that allows you to share any injustice you have experienced, so the bank can be exposed and others can learn. Make sure it is factual and you have the evidence to back up any accusations you make. Should the bank concerned try to exact revenge, tell us about that too. If you have a particularly bad example, why not let me know? Perhaps there's another book in it. In part 2, I discuss the whole question of the bank's role in more detail.